Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I am joined by Harmon Dial. It's another sunny day out here in Vancouver, and there's a lot going on tonight. You've got the Cup Final, which we're going to talk about. You've got the Calder Cup Final as well. The Cup is in the building is the title of today's episode. We're talking about the Stanley Cup, because usually when you say Cup, you're talking about the Stanley Cup, not the Calder Cup, but I digress. We're going to get into both games today. There's a lot going on today. Harm, how you feeling?
Feeling good, jacked up to watch some exciting hockey.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I want to read this from Bill Collette in the chat. He said, "What do you think? Any of the Vancouver Canucks players who are still in town, would they go to Abbotsford to support their sometimes coworkers?" That's an interesting one, because if there is a Canuck there, they'll put them on the Jumbotron, right? Like you'll know if there's a Canuck there, they'll get put on the Jumbotron. Do you know of any players that stayed back?
I'm not aware, but I also didn't look into it. So I don't know. I imagine the trek out to Abbey would probably be the biggest hurdle in the minds of players.
You ain't getting those guys out there on a weekday.
Yeah. Players are kind of spoiled and pampered and don't like long commutes. So I'd be pleasantly surprised if a Vancouver Canuck ends up attending Abby's Abby's game 3.
Maybe Noah Juleson.
Yeah, that might make sense.
We'll see. Okay. There's a lot to get to, so let's get right into it. I want to tell everybody about our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Okay, let's dive into it, Harm. Oilers, Panthers. Let's start there. Game 6 in Florida tonight. Roberto Luongo, we have a tweet here. Roberto Luongo hinted at him banging the pregame drum. And if you remember, he did that last year for Game 7 after, remember, the Panthers lost 3 straight games last year to force a Game 7 after going up 3-0. So they need some good luck tonight. They got it last year when Luongo banged the drum pregame, and it looks like they're going to get that again. Luongo going to come down from the press box, bang the crap out of that drum like he did last year, because if you recall, he was fired up to be hitting that drum, and he was hitting it very hard. He almost banged through the drum, it looked like. So he's back tonight, trying to will the Panthers to a Game 6 victory and really a back-to-back Stanley Cup victory.
Yeah, Lou's passion and energy last year was through the roof. And I mean, just to see him hoist the cup when they won as well, that was such a cool moment for every Canucks fan. This series has been fascinating. I see 2 issues for the Oilers right now. Number one, their breakouts have become an issue in a way where you didn't expect it to be a problem based on how well they were performing in that area through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. Game 5 especially, they just could not break the puck out of their own zone. And when you look at why it was so difficult for them to manufacture offense, whether it was off the roster, even just off the cycle and down low, and having those shifts where they really are able to hem the Panthers in their own end, it's because they couldn't get the puck from their defenders to their forwards cleanly. And that hasn't been a problem through the first 3 rounds of playoffs. And it's actually an area where, if you compare how the Oilers blue line was performing through the first 3 rounds of this year's playoffs compared to the first 3 rounds of last year's playoffs, this was an area where they had upgraded. And I praised some of the players that they had targeted, Jake Wallman, for example, and sort of moneyballing in a guy like John Klingberg and his outsized impact. But since then, Klingberg's play has fallen off a cliff, and he's, of course, become a healthy scratch. Kulak's play slipped a bit, and Bouchard struggled mightily in Game 5, not to mention Matthias Ekholm is normally such a rock-solid stud, top-pair two-way defenseman. He hasn't looked like himself coming back from injury. He looks like a shadow of his former self. Had a poor Game 5 performance. So Edmonton's blue line through the first 3 rounds of playoffs had held up pretty well, especially considering how many games Matthias Ekholm had missed. But now in the Cup Final, they've been struggling against the pressure of Florida's forecheck. And the second issue that I see for the Oilers right now is, do they have enough wingers that can produce in a top 6 role with Connor and Leon? We praised their depth and performance in non-McDavid 5-on-5 minutes earlier in the playoffs. But then, of course, the Zach Hyman's injury, but also Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He had 8 points, I believe, in the first 4 games, the Western Conference Final. He'd been essentially a point-per-game player through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. He's only got 2 points in the Cup Final. Plus, we know he's banged up. We know he's a game-time decision for one of the games. Evander Kane, who had been playing well, has been a liability in this series, just 1 point for him, and he's taken so many offensive zone penalties. So the production from the wingers and the play of their blue liners were strengths up until the Cup Final, and now those are becoming weaknesses, and that's problematic because I expected both of those areas to be functioning better.
And one thing we haven't even talked about yet is the goaltending. I don't want to transition completely away from what you were just talking about, because I think this highlights a important conversation about Zach Hyman and how important he is to this team and how much better the Oilers would look. I think that's fair to say if they had Zach Hyman on this team right now. We pre-recorded our interview with Jeff Paterson, but one thing you're going to hear him say about both Charlotte and Abbotsford is they're 4-line teams, and you don't just have to shut down one guy, one line, or a couple lines. The Oilers are that. They have been that, but I think that's what's been so impressive about their playoff run, and we've praised their depth, like you said, is that they were getting those contributions. Those contributions have dried up quite a bit. They definitely missed Zach Hyman. I wanted to get your take on the goaltending, though, Harm, because they're going back to Stuart Skinner for Game 6, and if you recall, Stuart Skinner lets in 3 goals in the first period of Game 4. They put in Calvin Pickard. He backstops them to a 5-4 overtime victory. They start him for Game 5, and then they lose 5-2 on home ice. Now it's back to Stuart Skinner. I'll start. I ain't surprised about that decision at all. I think that's the move. You're on the brink. You go to your guy. Stuart Skinner is their guy. I know there's been uncertainty, obviously, with him and what he's been able to provide for this team, but he is their guy. You go down with your guy. That's my take on goaltending as a whole. And certainly that's my take about this one. I would have gone to Stuart Skinner tonight, like they are.
Yeah, I don't have much confidence in Pickard anyway.
Yeah.
But even broadly speaking, Skinner hasn't played that poorly in this Cup Final. Yeah,
He's really good.
Is there an odd goal? 4. Yeah, is there an odd goal here or there that you probably wanted him to stop? Absolutely. But the games where he's been lit up are ones where the Oilers essentially no-showed and completely left him out to dry. Not just, oh, we're on our heels a little bit and the Panthers have the upper hand. No, it's the Panthers were flat out dominating. The Oilers didn't even look like they were in the same weight class, and those have been the moments where, all right, when you have a barrage of shots and chances of that quality, all right, Skinner sort of bent under that pressure. But to me, goaltending hasn't lost the Oilers a single game in the series.
You're right. Hasn't won them any either. That's the other thing. Like in the playoffs as a whole too, right? You bring up Pickard, like Pickard and Skinner. At the end of the day, they're both 2 mid goalies, and you have to pick between those. And I think you should pick Skinner. I think he's your guy. I don't think it's all that big of a difference, but I think you go down with your guy, and your guy is Stuart Skinner. I think they made the right decision going to him tonight. So we'll see how that one goes. Anything else you want to say about the Cup Final before we move on to Abbotsford? Well, we have our poll question, which is about the Cup Final, but do you have anything else on the Cup Final you want to talk about?
No, those 2 points I made about the breakouts and the wingers were the 2 main ones I wanted to focus on. That's what I'm keeping my eye on as far as Game 6 is concerned. Sorry, actually, one more note, because both you and I picked Edmonton. I underestimated just how much of a problem Edmonton's penalty kill was going to be. Now, we knew the numbers, mid 60% efficiency for their PK, but I almost thought that would have burned them early in the playoffs if that was going to burn them at any point. Right, round 2, for example, they go up against the Vegas Golden Knights, who in the regular season had the second best power play in the NHL, and the Oilers were fine. They were just so dominant at 5-on-5 that it almost didn't matter. Plus, the other key is they were disciplined enough to not take a lot of penalties. Whereas in this series, and same thing was kind of true. Yeah, you saw the PK show some seams in the Dallas series in the Western Conference for sure. But again, they were just so dominant 5-on-5 that it almost didn't matter. And now facing the Florida Panthers, they finally met a team that can match their 5-on-5 fastball, which is a problem. Plus, you tack on discipline concerns and the PK. Yeah, we knew it was a weakness, but I underestimated how problematic it could be. And that's where, again, discipline is going to be massive for this Oilers team because their PK just is flat out a liability.
You're not wrong. And part of it's goaltending. Part of it's goaltending. Erwin Aquino said, you have to go Skinner the rest of the way. If you lose starting Pickard, you will forever question if it was supposed to be Skinner. I think Erwin's bang on there. I absolutely agree. Got to go to your guy. Your guy is Stuart Skinner. Let's get to our poll question. It is brought to you by our friends over at Greta. By now, you know that Greta is a great spot to watch the big game, but did you know it's an even better spot for your upcoming party or event? If you need a venue for a team building or summer social event, check out Greta. They've got the great street food menu, the bar, and of course the arcade games. It's always a fun time with plenty of options. To book your event, for more info and to book your event, go to gretabar.com. Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right, our poll question. It was, is the Stanley Cup Final going to end tonight? 66.7% of voters say yes, Florida wins. 33.3% say no, Game 7 needed. I want to see a Game 7. Game 7 in Edmonton, that would be absolutely rocking. I am going for, I'm saying it's Edmonton wins tonight. Game 7 is needed.
Yeah, I don't have a prediction necessarily, but I want to see a Game 7 regardless. I don't care if you're cheering for the Panthers or the Oilers, even if you are cheering for the Panthers because you want to see the Oilers lose. How satisfying would it be if you're an Oiler hater to see them lose on home ice in a Game 7 for a second consecutive year? And obviously not the home ice part, but the second consecutive Game 7 Stanley Cup Final loss. Even if you're a Panthers fan and want them to win this series, you want to think about how to inflict a maximum pain on that fan base and that Schadenfreude perspective. You want to see Game 7. Now, obviously, I'm not necessarily in that camp of really wanting the Panthers to win. I think it'd be really cool to see McDavid win his cup. But either way, I think we want to see a Game 7.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Okay, that was our poll question. Like I said, we pre-recorded with Jeff Paterson, so we're going to get to that in a bit. So instead, we're going to get to anyone else a little bit early today. Anyone else is brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians. The Seas are back on the road to close out the first half of the Northwest League. They're in a tight pennant race and holding on to first place with a couple games to go. They could clinch a playoff spot this week in Eugene. The Seas are back at the net next week, opening up a long homestand with 9 games in 10 days. It is Women in Sports Night on Tuesday the 24th, rescheduled from a previous rainout. So Hazel May is going to be there. Fireworks on Thursday the 26th, Nooner at the Nat on the 27th, Marvel Superhero Day on the 28th, and Celebrate Canada Day on July 1st with a 1:05 p.m. first pitch and bucket hat giveaway. The Nat is going to be rocking next week. Don't miss it. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or check out CanadiansBaseball.com. All right, couple things here. Abbotsford Canucks in action tonight with the Calder Cup Final. We're going to talk about that with Jeff's series, obviously split at 1 apiece. But I did want to talk to you about this, Harm. This series, it's hard to get a feel for the Abbotsford Canucks, but I do want to say this. The fans in Abbey have made that a very hard building to play in. Like, it is super loud in there. And again, it's not really a surprise. Rogers Arena was a tough place to play when the Canucks were in the playoffs last year. That's the same with the Abbotsford Center. The Abbotsford Canucks are 8-2 at home on this playoff run. I just want to see them clinch it on home ice. If they win 3 straight, they clinch it. I know you got to take it one game at a time. That's what everyone's going to say. But man, oh man, would I love to see them clinch this with 3 straight home wins. Do it for the fans in Abbey. Do it in front of the fans out there in Abbotsford. I know it's easier said than done. Charlotte's a really good team, but that would just be amazing if they were able to rattle off 3 here.
It would be, but I think that's a little bit pie in the sky. 3, I was thinking, all right, the goal should be 2 of 3. And not just a goal that has to be, put it this way, if they only get 1 of the next 3, I don't think they're winning the series. 2 of 3 is sort of the standard, is the bar they need to hit. Rattling off 3 wins in a row is going to be exceptionally difficult when you look at how sort of drastically Charlotte has outplayed Abbotsford through the first 2 games of the series. J-Pat pointed out that the shot differential is plus 53 in the Checkers' favor through the first 2 games. Plus, they had won 8 straight games before the Calder Cup final as well. And you also add on the fatigue factor to the mix as well, where Abbotsford's played a lot more games in this playoff run. They had a lot shorter rest time leading up to the Calder Cup final. I don't think winning 3 straight is realistic. I'd love to see it, but 2 of 3 has to get done in my mind for Abby to win this series. You are looking for them to feed off the home crowd's energy and the improved ice conditions as well. We heard Brandon Nassel mention how poor the ice was in North Carolina, how hot and muggy it was, and how difficult it was to connect plays. You're hoping that works in Abbotsford's favor as far as returning to home. And again, if you're more tired than Charlotte, that's where the home fans can give you that extra little bit of juice.
3 straight, baby. Make it happen. I'm there on Saturday, so I also want to see them clinch it. Make it happen. 3 straight. Not too much to ask, I don't think. But you're right about the 2 thing. You're right about at least 2 because you're going back to Charlotte. And hey, that's a tough building to play in, not because it's loud, but because the ice sucks. So that's all I got to say about Abbotsford. Did you have anything else you want to say?
No, we have a lot of good stuff in the interview. So
yeah. I've got a couple things I want to get to. The Olympic hockey schedule has been released. Games start February 11th and go until the 22nd. Sweden versus Italy to open the tournament. I was looking at that and just saying, man, you couldn't give the hosts like an easier matchup. Like, why not start them with like Denmark or Latvia just to ease Italy into it? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's randomized. I don't know how they decide it. But yeah, Italy opens the tournament against Sweden. Canada's first game is February 12th versus Czechia. Italy and Canada are in different groups, so they won't meet in the round robin stage. There's 4 quarterfinal games from February 17th to 18th, 2 semifinal games, and a bronze and gold medal game to close out the tournament on the 21st and 22nd, respectively. I'm excited for Olympic hockey. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. As much as it was cool to see Canada win 4 nations, that's not going to matter if they don't win Olympic gold. Let's be honest. If the Americans win gold or whatever country, if it's Sweden, Finland, no one's really going to care that, we won 4 nations. 4 nations was sweet in the moment, especially because of how politically charged it was at the time. But Canada needs to win gold as well, and it's going to be exceptionally close, especially because the Americans are going to have Quinn Hughes back. Mm-hmm. That's a massive advantage that they didn't have, especially because they were forced to sort of lean on Adam Fox for a little bit, and his role progressively became smaller throughout that 4 Nations tournament. But that American blue line with healthy Quinn, Jacob Slavin for the shutdown presence, Zach Werenski is, then you add the physical dynamic that a Charlie McAvoy adds. That American blue line is going to be absolutely stacked.
Yep, absolutely.
Something I just want to point out, the women's tournament actually starts earlier. It starts the day before the opening ceremonies. So we'll actually have the women's gold medal game, which you would assume would be Canada and the U.S., as it has been for all but one of the Olympic tournaments since the women's game actually made it into the Olympics. That gold medal game will come right before or at the same time as the men's quarterfinals. So we're going to see a lot of knockout games in a row when you factor into the women's tournament as well. So, hey, the last basically 8 or 9 days of the Olympics will be packed full with hockey knockout games. Or sorry, not the last 8, but like about 8 or 9 days in a row will be packed full of knockout games.
This was a good one from Karna that I wanted to read. He said, who is the front runner for the Conn Smythe if Florida wins it? Bennett, Marchand, or Bobrovsky? I'm going to say we don't know the answer yet and that it could change. I'd say right now it's probably Sam Bennett.
I agree. He's up to 15 goals, which is 5 more than Marchand. But hey, if Marchand scores another goal or 2, that could swing the pendulum in his favor, especially because of how many of his goals have been in clutch situations that have either given the Panthers a lead or the OT winners. But if I had to pick a winner right now, I would give the slight edge to Bennett. I think he's just been such a dominant goal scorer for them. And the Panthers are a unique team where they haven't, even last year, it's not as if they had one standout player. They at the top of the lineup, they all do it by committee. Part of the reason Bennett and Marchand can have so much success is because they have Barkov at the top of the lineup, who hasn't been producing offensively, but has the thankless job of having to hold McDavid in check and absorb all those tough matchups. They just have so many different difference makers up and down that lineup that they're not reliant on one guy to just put the team on their back.
This last one from Rajcraft. We'll close it out after this. Get to Jeff. Rajcraft said this. What about trying to get Troy Terry? I don't know if Troy Terry would
that report already got refuted.
Who is it from? I know
Andy Strickland reported, the Blues rinkside reporter. And within the hour, he said that a team spokesperson shot the report down. So Troy Terry is not available despite it appearing that way for about an hour.
Who is Andy Strickland? Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. TV. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, there's your answer, Rajcraft. Thanks for asking the question, but that was a quick answer. Okay, there was another rumor. This one is very firmly a rumor. Vitaly Kravtsov making an NHL comeback.
Okay, stop. I thought you were gonna talk about Bowen Byram. I was kind of excited for this conversation.
Oh, you want to talk about?
Don't come out with Vitaly Kravtsov.
Well, I looked in on it.
Season, but come on.
I did some freaking reporting hard.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. All right.
Jeez, man. Nothing's happening with Vitaly Kravtsov. I looked into it. If Vitaly Kravtsov comes back and plays NHL games, it won't be with the Canucks. It'll be like a Victor Soderstrom type thing where they trade his rights to a team that wants him, that he maybe wants to go play for. Vitaly Kravtsov's not coming back to the Canucks. You can just forget about that. That was
hard-hitting journalism.
Dude, whatever. Well, there's reports that he's making an NHL comeback and be like, oh, the Canucks hold his rights. Which they do. I guess I shouldn't do that voice. That's a statement of fact. But even though they hold his rights, there's no conversation. I think Dhaliwal even said that. There's no conversation between Kravtsov's agent and the Canucks. And that if Kravtsov comes back, it won't be with the Canucks. It'll be a trade, and then he'll go play for that team. That's all I want to say on that.
Dom B asking how much his rights would be worth, knowing that there will be teams interested.
I don't even know if it's...
Are there teams interested?
Yeah.
He scored 27 goals.
He had a really good KHL season.
But I just said it. Like, look at the Soderstrom one is kind of the template that we're going to use. That was a 7th round pick. So what are we talking about here? And Ryan Mast, who, I don't know. Yeah, like, guy played ECHL games last season. It's not high. You're not getting a 4th or a 3rd for Vitaly Kravtsov's rights. It's not happening. But if he comes back, the Canucks are going to get something for it. And that's great. That's great. You didn't think you were getting anything. So go Vitaly Kravtsov. I hope he makes an NHL comeback. That'd be great for the Canucks to just add a 7th round pick. But no, it's not anything significant. I think we can move on from Kravtsov. You want to talk about Bowen Byram. And the reason you want to talk about it is because Adrian Dater out in Colorado, again, who covered Byram for years, reported that he believes that Byram wants to be a Canuck. Of course, Byram being from... What, Nelson or Cranbrook? Where's he from?
He's from Cranbrook.
Okay. Thank you.
And then obviously played for the Vancouver Giants.
Played for the Vancouver Giants. Someone's got to tell him that the Canucks don't play in Langley. I would love if Bowen Byram wanted to get traded to the Canucks because he's like, I played for the Vancouver Giants and my life was awesome out in Langley. And he doesn't realize that they play downtown and that it's a little bit different than what he experienced. But in all seriousness, Bowen Byram, an interesting one because I don't think you look at the Canucks lineup and see an immediate fit. We covered this at Canucks Army. I think the way we wrote it was kind of like they would need to make some sort of move if they were going to bring in Bowen Byram. Someone in our comments, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but someone in the comments said, this is why it was stupid to rush on Marcus Pettersson. You made the trade because you were trying to make the playoffs, and then you didn't make the playoffs. Then you extended Marcus Pettersson, and now you don't have the flexibility or the space in your lineup to go get Bowen Byram. I don't agree with that. Jacob, don't clip this. The way I kind of look at it, though, is, yeah, okay, but then what if this Bowen Byram thing didn't happen? Then all of a sudden your off-season to-do list is even longer because now you've got to go out and get another defenseman as well.
Yeah, the fit just doesn't make sense for me. At this stage, obviously, the Canucks only have about $12 million in cap space. We know that they have significant needs up front, not just one top six forward, but multiple that they need to add. $12 million of cap space sounds good on the surface, but when you're talking about adding multiple top six forwards, that space gets used up very quickly. And Byram is arbitration eligible RFA. I would suspect that his next contract is probably a long-term deal in the $7 to $8 million AAV range. That's the majority of your cap space right there. That just doesn't make sense when the Canucks are already relatively set on the back end and have glaring needs up front. Not to mention the premium assets it would cost to get him.
Yes. They would have to move something significant on the back end, whether that be Philip Hronek, whether that be Marcus Pettersson, and then some, because you still need that cap space. And I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it for a guy with some serious question marks as well in Bowen Byram. I think that's the important part to mention.
Well, also, I've heard this idea that, could Byram be your Quinn Hughes insurance if he leaves? No. Byram's a good player, but there is no Quinn Hughes insurance.
No, and we have to say this now. If Quinn Hughes leaves, this team needs to rebuild. You don't pivot and... Actually, you know what? I had this thought the other day. I don't even want to get into this hard. Why are we talking about this? But if Quinn Hughes does say, okay, I don't want to extend, you have to trade me. Like, is it gonna be win now pieces that the Canucks trade for? Is it gonna
please
be
no.
Well,
you
Matthew Tkachuk, it was Huberdeau, Weegar, and a draft pick. So there's one not win now piece, but like it was win now pieces that went back to Calgary in that trade.
It'd be dumb for the Canucks to do something like that. You lose.
I didn't ask if it'd be dumb. I asked, do you think it will be?
It's too early. I'm not gonna speculate on what the organization
does in a
would
year
do.
And a half.
Yeah, for all we know, they could have a really good season this coming year, and now all of a sudden you're optimistic about your chances of keeping Quinn. But the other thing with Byram is he's a tricky player to evaluate. We don't even know exactly how good he is, because by the eye test, you watch him, he's got all these flashy tools, the skating, the puck moving ability, offensive chops. And yet when you look at his underlying numbers, he was the only really good with Rasmus Dahlin. You look at Byram's 5-on-5 minutes away from Dahlin this year, the Sabres only controlled about 42% of scoring chances. They were heavily outshot and heavily outchanced when Byram was asked to drive his own pair. So we don't even know at this point if Byram can drive his own pair or whether he's just a high-end complementary top four defenseman. And people will say, well, maybe it's just because he's playing in Buffalo, so his numbers away from Dahlin, why would they be good? But even Byram's last year in Colorado, his underlying numbers weren't very good. So he's a tricky player. He has the ceiling, yes, to be a top pair star, but his play has been up and down, and there's a gap right now between his tools look borderline elite, but his actual on-ice impact hasn't exactly matched that. And you add the concussion history that he's dealt with in years past, and it doesn't make sense to me at all.
There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty with the player. It doesn't make much sense. Jacob, don't clip any of that. Okay. Let's get to our interview with Jeff Paterson. We'll bring it in. And like I said, this was pre-recorded, folks, so bear with us, but we'll get to the interview with Jeff Paterson right about now. All right, we're going to be joined by Jeff Paterson now. He's brought to you by our friends over at Pacific Toyota Dealers, who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X. An SUV packed with plenty of space, the BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. It's backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota, and if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes, even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get a $5,000 incentive, and now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, Jeff Paterson joins us now, the host of Rinkwide. Jeff, you didn't think you'd be doing Rinkwide this late in the season, but how fun has it been to be covering this Abbotsford Canucks team?
Yeah, it's been awesome. You're right. I went away for a week. I'm back now. Planned a holiday because I just didn't think that that the Abbotsford Canucks, and look, I didn't want to bet against them, but I know you had Brandon Astle on yesterday talking about, like, in January, they were a middle burger at best, like the idea of them getting to this point. So yeah, when the Canucks season ended, the Vancouver Canucks season ended, my wife and I planned a week getaway. That's taken place. We're back now, and they're still playing hockey. So good on them. It's been awesome. You think in most years, the Vancouver Canucks season ends, and we all wonder, like, how are we going to get from here to there? There being the draft and free agency, and there's usually 6 or 8 weeks where you're spinning your wheels, and you can only go back and look at what happened in the regular season so much. So this has been great to fill that gap every other night, to have hockey, high-level hockey, the stakes getting higher as this playoff run has progressed. And, there's been some really nice stories that have emerged as well. And so I'm really excited for the fans in Abbotsford, for the players in Abbotsford. I think that building is going to be rocking tonight. And let's hope that they put on a show and can get back out in front in this best-of-7 series. They're going to have to be better than they were in either of the games down in Charlotte. In some ways, they're fortunate to be in a 1-1 tie, but they don't ask how many, or they don't ask how, they just ask how many at this time of year. And so they found a way to get out a victory on Friday night, and weren't as good on Sunday, but got the split, and here they are back at home for 3 now. So opportunity knocking for Abbotsford, and we'll see if they can answer this evening.
What have you seen in this Calder Cup final so far? And does it feel like Charlotte poses a different challenge compared to Abbotsford's previous opponents, where you look at Texas or Colorado, it felt like those were top-heavy offensive teams, where, from my perspective, it feels like for the first time, Abbotsford's running into an opponent that is very similar to them in the sense that they can roll all 4 lines and there's no weakness. And it just feels like a different challenge in terms of the quality and depth of their lineup. What have you seen, and how different is this challenge from Charlotte?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, Harm. And look, I'm like most, came in pretty blind here. You can look at all the stats on paper, but without actually seeing these teams and how they've accomplished things, it's hard to know. But as the Abbotsford playoff run has progressed, and we've done Rinkwide every night, keeping an eye on the out-of-town scoreboard and seeing this Charlotte team, sweep Hershey and then sweep Laval and come in on an 8-game win streak, you realize, like, these guys are playing some really good hockey. And I've been impressed with the speed and tenacity, and there is a balance that, John Leonard is their highest scorer, and he scored in game 2, but Abbotsford did a nice job of keeping him in check in the opener. But otherwise, they've got an active defense. Michael Benning, that was his 5th goal already in the playoffs. He scored 9 in the regular season. Trevor Carrick had a 50-point regular season as a defenseman there. And you're seeing that. I think the defensemen are active and aggressive, pinching, keeping plays alive in the offensive zone. And this is something that obviously, and Matty Malhotra, pretty honest in his comments, he'll take the split, but he wasn't happy with the way that his team played, really, in either of those games down in Charlotte. When Abbotsford's on its game, it's getting in on the forecheck. It is being disruptive. They've got size on the wings when you look at guys like Phil DiGiuseppe and Jujhar Khaira, and even some of the guys that aren't big, Tristan Nielsen, just the dog on a bone, constantly, relentlessly hounding pucks. And yet, certainly in game 2 on Sunday, there was almost none of that, with the 13 shots and only 7 in the first period and 6 the rest of the way. Like, that's not a formula for success. So I'm really curious to see if Abbotsford can use home ice advantage, try to dictate the way the game is played. I don't know that it's a game of matchups necessarily. I mean, Abbotsford sort of built to be a 4-line team, and as you said, Charlotte much the same way. So Charlotte did a nice job, I thought, of hemming Abbotsford in an awful lot on Sunday, to the point where all Abby could do was high flips to center and get off the ice, or get the puck to the red line, dump it in. But then they didn't have guys that could get in on the forecheck because they were tired from defending. They'd get off the ice, and the new guys couldn't get in to establish the pressure that they needed. So I want to see if Abbotsford can get back to its game, because I think, based on the balance of play and the shot differential at plus 53 for Charlotte through 2 games, it is safe to say that the Checkers have been able to dictate the way these games have gone far more than Abbotsford has, and that's a credit to Charlotte. But hey, guess what? It says in the rulebook that you can have a pretty good goaltender, and Abby has that in Artur Silovs, and he has been terrific in this series and obviously through these playoffs. And tonight's his 21st consecutive start. He made 21 starts in the regular season at the American Hockey League level, and here he is now equaling that total, going basically every night. So I wondered if fatigue was starting to play a little bit of a role here. It was 2 quick games Friday night and then the turnaround to Sunday afternoon. I don't think Abbotsford was at its best. Watch this team through the playoffs. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here, but they got to show it tonight. They have to step up and just find a way to play more of the game in the Charlotte end.
The Abbotsford fans, I brought this up earlier, have made the Abbotsford Center such a tough place to play throughout these playoffs. And it's going to be a factor for sure. And I think that's another kind of part of all of this is that we were talking to Brandon Astley yesterday. He's talking about how bad the ice was in Charlotte. Like, you're going to get better ice in Abbotsford. You're going to have the home fans rocking. Like, how much are you looking at this Abbotsford team and just saying like, okay, these guys got to just show up on home ice and rattle off 3 straight here?
Well, easier said than done because there are 2 teams, and I think Charlotte has designs on wrestling home ice advantage back and getting this series back to North Carolina. But that's why tonight feels like a huge opportunity. Abbotsford has never trailed at any stage in any of the series it's played. It's lost games, but those games have either been to equalize or to chip away at an Abbotsford lead within the series. Abbotsford has never been down in a single series that it has played. And so, that changes the dynamic. All of a sudden, if they lose tonight, now there's a ton of pressure on them for game 4, but they can't worry about game 4. It's all about doing what they have to do in game 3. Now, I tweeted this out earlier in the day, and I certainly stand by it. I want to see Abbotsford come out and absolutely dictate, feed off that home ice advantage, and stack some heavy shifts. And some of those guys that I mentioned, Sammy Blais is an absolute wrecking ball. Like, I want to see Sammy Blais at his best, come out, set the tone, stack a few shifts here, because as we have done the first 20 playoff games, if there is a true knock on the Abbotsford Canucks here, and there are very few, but I don't think it's a stretch to say they've kind of wade into a lot of these games. And they, like, the number of times that Artur Silovs has had to make a 10-alarm save in the first minute or the first shot. And look, there's a comfort in knowing that your goalie's got you, and he has throughout these playoffs, but it's also a dangerous way to play repeatedly if you're giving up those chances until finally you find your legs. So travel was the same for both of these guys, both of these teams, but it was interesting because I went back and looked, and I'm always curious with an East-West imbalance. Charlotte has not played a road game since May 29th. So it's been a while since they've been out on the road. But beyond that, they haven't left the Eastern time zone since the final week of January. They are 3 time zones away from home. It was a long day of travel. Like Abbotsford had to do Texas and back last round, Colorado. I mean, that's just life in the West. You get used to that kind of travel. But I do wonder if that's going to be any sort of impact. Now, they're out here. We know that there are going to be 3 games in Abbotsford. You'd think there'd be some adjustment as time marches on. So if it's going to be a factor, maybe it's this one tonight facing off at 10 o'clock Eastern on their body clocks. Again, can Abbotsford find a way to use home ice to its fullest advantage? I'm really curious to see, but I do want to see them get on it, get on top of the game early rather than sitting and waiting, because I think through 2 games now, they have a pretty good handle on what the Charlotte team is and what it's all about and the way it wants to play. And again, I just don't think Charlotte's seen the best that Abbotsford has to offer. I hope they do tonight.
Victor Mancini was dominant through, it felt like, the first 2.5 rounds of the playoffs. Watching him lately, especially through the first 2 games of the Calder Cup Final, it's not that he's played poorly, but he looks more pedestrian, more human, not really able to dictate play and be the one-man breakout machine that he often was earlier in the playoffs. Do you look at him as one of the players that really needs to kind of grab the bull by the horns and be that true high-end difference maker from the back end, especially because in game 2, it felt like part of the reason they couldn't generate shots was because they weren't able to break the puck out of their own zone?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to have those expectations because he has shown this ability throughout the playoffs. And, when I look at a Mancini, I believe that that's in his game as opposed to, a veteran guy like Guillaume Brisebois, who's been terrific defensively, but I don't expect Guillaume Brisebois to be stick handling through a bunch of guys and breaking pucks out himself. But a guy like Victor Mancini, absolutely, he's got that in him. And that's where I said there was just way too much of the high flip to center ice to alleviate pressure. And then guys would try to change. And obviously in the second period, you got the long change. That's even more difficult. The second period on Sunday, Abbotsford had 2 shots on goal. They were both from defensemen. So not a forward had a shot on goal in a 2-all tie in that second period. But it speaks to your point, Harm, that they just couldn't break pucks out. Now, again, credit to Charlotte. They were able to get in on the forecheck. I thought that there were a couple of risky plays on the part of the Abbotsford defensemen that they got away with. They didn't end up in the back of their net, but you're playing with fire if you're going to play that way. So I want to see just crisper, cleaner breakouts. Guys making themselves available for that breakout pass, because it can't all be on the defenseman, obviously. But I think a guy like Victor Mancini is one to watch. And again, this is where I come back to the fact that they've played 20 games. Like, that's a lot for a lot of these guys, especially as the stakes get higher. High leverage situations, it takes its toll not only on the body but on the mind as well. And so you hope that Abbotsford isn't hitting some sort of wall, but that's where I think that the fans have a role to play in this, to sort of give them some of that energy to try to feed off tonight so that they can get back in front in this series.
Jeff, last one from me. We talked a lot about our Shilovs. You talked about it as a 4-line team, and we've talked a lot about it, a bunch of different guys. Give me your Abbotsford MVP, not named Archer Shilovs.
In the playoff run?
Playoff run.
I mean, it's hard to go against Linus Karlsson just in terms of production, but in saying that, through these first 2 games, and I know he scored a power play goal the other day, and it was his 10th of the playoffs, and that leads the American Hockey League, and all that's great. He's got way more to give. I have to believe he's got way more to give. He hasn't been a factor other than walking out of the corner and stuffing a puck in on the power play to tie the game late in the first period the other night. But a goal every other game, essentially 10 goals in 20 games. Hard to argue with that. So he's been productive. He's a guy that has a little bit of grease to his game, certainly at this level, gets to the front of the net, is able to establish himself there. But he's going to have to do some of those things because, quite frankly, I just don't think he's been good enough, but it's a long list of guys. But he's had a terrific run here. And it's a wild thing. Like, he's got 10 goals. Nobody else on this team has more than 5 goals in the playoffs. So, again, Abbotsford isn't looking to blow you out. Like, that was one of the frustrations, I think, the other day, or disappointments, was that a 3-2 hockey game, like, that's Abbotsford Canuck hockey. They want to beat you 2-1 and 3-2. And so to have a 3-2 goal go against them in overtime after they had a power play to start OT the other day. But a lot of it starts with, getting pucks out and then getting the attack and trying to establish their forecheck. And Linus Karlsson can be a big part of that. But he's had a nice playoff run. But I think through 2 games, him and Arshdeep Bains are the 2 guys, they're 2 leaders here. They're 2 veterans. I want to see them sort of be guys that lead this team into the battle tonight. And I would expect, as I said, they've earned the benefit of the doubt. So I give them every opportunity to show that they're going to up their level of competition here this evening.
Last one for me. When it comes to the senior Canucks, we've spent a lot of time dissecting various potential offseason targets, whether it's on the free agent market or primarily really on the trade market. Is there a target or 2 that stands out to you as this is the guy the Canucks should go after?
Oh, I know that I was on with Harrison Price last week, and we talked a little bit about Alex Tuch as a guy that, that's the kind of player in my mind that I think the Vancouver Canucks could use. Skill, some hard skill. He's got size, obviously offensive chops, and a proven guy with some playoff experience too. So I guess I'm sitting here waiting for this Buffalo fire sale that we all think is going to happen to begin. And when you saw Anaheim and the Rangers hook up on the Chris Kreider deal last week, I thought, okay, maybe that signaled that trading season has arrived. It's been a week, and we really haven't seen much action around the National Hockey League. Now, of course, the Stanley Cup hasn't been presented yet, and maybe in the minutes after the cup is handed out, other GMs are going to get after it. Or maybe it's all going to wait until the draft, although hard to fully gauge what the draft's going to feel like this year with the decentralization. But I still expect a ton of trade activity, even if the GMs aren't all in the same building under the same roof. So Alex Tuch is one. It was funny because I was reading a story out of Philadelphia about the needs of the Flyers, and it just felt like you could absolutely replace Flyers with Canucks. Flyers want to be aggressive this offseason. Flyers, they need center ice help. Flyers, maybe they're going to take a chance on some veteran stopgap guys. And it was just like, yeah, I mean, that sounds like the playbook that, the Vancouver Canucks may be reading from as well. So I'm anticipating that the Canucks are going to be active. It hasn't happened yet, which kind of flies in the face of the way Jim Rutherford has always conducted his business. But boy, if they get to the 15th pick in that first round and the Canucks go to a podium or whatever the setup looks like this year, I'm going to read that as something has gone sort of sideways in their offseason plans here, because I'm strongly of the belief that 15th overall will be used by somebody other than the Vancouver Canucks. And then it's a matter of, where did it go? What did they get in return? What did the package? Because I don't think 15 on its own is going to return you what they're looking for. So I think it's going to be used as part of a bigger package here. The beauty of all this, guys, is like you can now count down on all your fingers and thumbs. Like, we're within striking distance of the draft, and then beyond that, free agency. So it's getting there. We're not there yet, but I expect some heavy trade activity, and I expect the Canucks to be involved over the next week to 10 days.
It's going to be a busy couple weeks for us. Jeff, thanks so much for taking the time to do this today. We'll chat with you soon.
Yeah, just a plug for Rink Wide if people haven't caught on yet after every one of these Abbotsford games. So we know we'll be doing one Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and we'll see where the series goes from there. But a real opportunity with 3 in a row at home for the Abbotsford Canucks to get back out in front in this series, and we'll have Rink Wide after every one of the games as far as they go in this AHL final.
Go win all 3. All right, Jeff, thanks for doing this.
Thanks, guys.
There he is, Jeff Paterson, the host of Rink Wide. You can catch him with Irfan Gafar. Tyson Cole's been on that show, and of course Dave Hall, the guy who writes the Farmies for us at Canucks Army, and of course Dave Hall, a regular on our show as well. You can catch him on Rink Wide. All right, Harm, let's get out of here. As Brandon Astle would say, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by Bet365. Tonight, it is Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. It is in Florida. We already talked about it. Luongo's warming up on the drum. He's getting ready to bang the drum. The last time he did that, the Panthers won Game 7. The Oilers are heavy underdogs. Heavy underdogs tonight, with the Panthers being the heavy favorite. Right now, Panthers' money line is -160. Oilers' money line is +135. I think this goes to 7. I think this goes back to Edmonton. I'm sticking with my pick of the Oilers. I'm saying tonight, the Oilers take Game 6. You can get the Oilers to win tonight at +135 odds. Of course, you can get that over at Bet365. And if you want to get on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs, Bet365 has got you covered. From game props, player props, and so much more, they've got you covered. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get it on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, we will close it out there. For my co-host Harmon Dial, our technical producer Jacob Lazar, my name is David Guidrelli. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.